Good morning, welcome to CATEX TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Thursday, February 14th, 2013. It's been another plane crash in Russia, another Antonov 24, a relatively small plane carrying 44 passengers and crew. It skidded off a runway in the eastern Ukrainian city of Donetsk yesterday, killing 5 people. The crash occurred shortly after 6 p.m. local time. The plane was operated by Southern Airlines. It was carrying soccer fans heading for a match. The cause of the accident is not immediately clear. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway is making another move in the United States. A long time ago, Mr. Buffett, when asked about how he picks stocks, said, "I buy stocks in companies whose products I use every day." Well, apparently he uses ketchup. He's made an offer to buy H.J. Heinz for about $23 billion. He's teamed up with a Brazilian investment firm called 3G Capital Management. They own a majority stake in a company whose business is complementary to H.J. Heinz. That, of course, would be Burger King. Mr. Buffett will pay about a 20% premium above the shares as they closed yesterday on H.J. Heinz on the New York Stock Exchange. Well, this is interesting. We mentioned this yesterday in connection with the Crystal River nuclear plant. The one event or two event sequence. You might recall that in the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001, Larry Silverstein, the leaseholder of the two towers, was arguing that it should be considered as two separate events, which would have allowed him to collect up to $7 billion. The courts ruled for the most part that Mr. Silverstein was correct, that it was two separate events. However, in the settlement that he finally reached with the insurance companies and the reinsurance companies, he received only $4.5 billion. They managed to view it as one single event. Well, an English court upheld an arbitration award yesterday that concluded losses arising out of September 11, 2001 attack on the Trade Center, in fact, arose out of two events rather than one. The ruling from the British court determines how aviation losses should be aggregated for the purposes of reinsurance protection. Following the hijackings and the subsequent collapse of the towers, a large number of lawsuits were started against the airlines and their security operators. The claims were settled. They were paid by their insurers, who in turn looked to their reinsurers, who then paid those claims, who then in turn looked to their retrocessionaires, i.e. other reinsurers who were reinsuring them. On the claims being presented to the retrocessionaires, a dispute arose concerning whether one event or two had taken place. This resulted in an arbitration hearing held in London last year, which ruled that in fact that only one event had occurred. Which ruled that two events had occurred, causing the retrocessionaires to have to pay the full amount. And that, in fact, was the arbitration ruling that was upheld by the court the day before yesterday. This is the first time that this issue has been addressed in English courts, whether the World Trade Center attack was one attack or two attacks. Well, here's an interesting story. The singer Lady Gaga is undergoing surgery to repair a hip injury. This is forcing her to cancel the rest of her Born This Way ball tour. She's going to have an operation to repair a tear in her right hip. She's already canceled 4 dates this week, and the rest of the tour is now shot. There were 21 dates left, including stops in Philadelphia, New York, Boston, Atlanta, Washington, D.C. It was going to end on March 20th in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Refunds are available to fans. Somebody undoubtedly has the tour coverage on this, probably in Lloyd's, so we'll see what happens. Here's interesting news. A high-ranking member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, a general apparently, was assassinated this week while traveling from Syria to Lebanon. According to the Iranians, he was targeted by, quote, suspected Israeli agents. This is the first time that there's been proof positive of the extent of the involvement of the Tehran regime in propping up Bashar Assad's regime in Syria. The Iranian opposition website identified the killed General Shatiri as a member of the Quds Force, Quds, the foreign arm of the Revolutionary Guard, a very important person. An update on the Carnival Triumph cruise ship now, which is going to arrive tonight sometime in Mobile, Alabama, with more than 4,000 people on board. They're going to arrive there, and they're immediately going to be packed on buses to be brought to New Orleans, where Carnival has reserved 1,500 rooms. Carnival is covering all costs. Speaking to American news outlets this morning, passengers said that the conditions on the ship were extremely terrible. There was no electricity and few working toilets. One woman described having to use plastic bags to go to the bathroom and waiting in line for hours to get food, and once saw a woman pass out in line. The same person said that she and her friends slept with life vests one night because the ship was listing and they feared it would tip over. Other people said the ship smelled like smoke from the engine fire. People were getting sick. The company has disputed the accounts of passengers who described the ship as filthy, saying employees are doing everything they can to ensure the comfort of the passengers. The French president has arrived in New Delhi, India. President Francois Hollande. He's pushing an increase in trade between the two countries, and he's starting out with lobbying hard for a $12 billion deal that France's Dassault Aviation hopes to clinch, which would sell 126 Rafale fighter jets to India. President Hollande can point out that the same jets have been successfully deployed in Mali in the French intervention against the Northern African Al-Qaeda group. Here's another story. A revision of Bermuda's work permit policies has been completed. It will increase the number of jobs that are off limits to non-Bermudians. This is always a big problem in Bermuda, as the indigenous Bermuda population believes that foreigners are taking all the jobs. It's good to see that the government's getting responsive to this. They've added a couple of jobs that have been sort of floating around out there. These are now completely off limits to non-Bermudans. Technicians, cashiers, grocery packers, and couriers. Well, that will certainly help. They've also moved into the restricted category where a Bermudan has to be hired in preference over a non-Bermudan. Carpenters, room attendants, administrative assistants, kitchen porters, landscape gardeners, and mason. It's a fine line that the government has to walk down there in order to ensure that services are maintained, and also to make sure that the local population doesn't explode. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.